I'm talking for generally. So here's my take, right? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah,
Yeah, a
it's
lot
much
better.
better.
So here's my take. I'm really trying to understand the meaning as the second chapter like segues into. I was like really contemplating into it, and here's what I want from finding my meaning, right? Here's my expectation, or here's my assumptions about what it feels like finding a meaning. It feels like when I find my meaning, every day I wake up with like a sense of purpose, and that helps me motivate and push through times that are not particularly comfortable. Have like a higher reason to like keep doing what I do in spite of the suffering that I'm going through. That's what I understand from suffering. However, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm having this conversation with you guys. I'm super excited. I love this time of hour, yeah, and it's super enjoyable. But it's but but the kind of stuff I do, like this kind of stuff, is not doesn't like drive me personally. So I was just wanted to ask you guys, like I want to ask you, Ray, like what drives you, or is there anything that drives you?
Oh, I don't understand. What is it? What do you mean it doesn't drive you personally? Where I'm sitting, it seems like you definitely have drive. It
Yeah,
seems like
I
you're
would say this is
extremely
a very
interested in these
driving
things.
thing.
So what I
You
think
started
of
this
as drive,
conversation.
Yeah,
yeah, like
I'm
you're always
curious, right?
coming with a burning curiosity. And for me, that's it. Is like you're sort of just leading with curiosity in all, I don't know, all aspects of life, but just it's a very big thing, right? Maybe not
Yeah,
curiosity, but like the energy that goes into it.
I think curiosity is a good word. I honestly feel curiosity is a better word, but I don't feel curiosity captures that. I don't feel curiosity has this I need this outcome kind of energy. It's more really like
Right.
a take it or leave it energy. It's a very like you can choose this thing rather than, oh, I'm gonna like do this thing in spite of all the suffering, negativity, and wake up every morning and like push through. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm sort of getting at. Because I don't know, in a general sense, what you're conveying is just like, where do you get your energy from? Or like, the way you move through the world, where does that come from? And it can come from this sense of like, I don't know what you're saying, like a very tight type of passion energy where it's like, I gotta get this and that, and I got goals and this, whatever. But
Yeah.
curiosity is a very different motivator, in my opinion. And kind of like you said, it's more open, it sort of allows whatever arises, but it's still active. It
Yeah.
still seeks things out, and I find it to be extremely energizing. Not at all
Do
draining.
you, Vito, do you potentially mean that like there doesn't seem to be like a larger like end game or end goal with these sorts of things, and so like it it feels like you're almost like spinning your wheels, so you just don't like have like motivation to anything further than conversation. Is that what you mean?
Like, I'm motivated to think more, and having this kind of conversation does energize me. But if I have to like think and say, okay, I'm going to do this tough thing, can I use this energy to like push me through, I don't know, like uncomfortable time or something? I don't know. I don't feel my.
Oh, well, that okay, yeah. So okay, so that helps me understand what you're saying.
You understand what
So
I'm
it's not
saying?
like it's not a tool. So like okay, so I initially referenced like old boots who was
Oh,
like in
yeah.
sales and like, very motivated in this term where I would find things to keep me going and to keep me focused. And
Mm-hmm.
if I was not focusing, that was viewed as sort of as failure
Yeah.
or just as like off the path, and off the path was not ideal or it was wrong. And
Yeah.
so these conversations don't really give you something that keeps you on the path, so to speak. And so I could see coming from, I mean, if I step into like old boots mine, I could see how like that, for that would be kind of like, well, what, like, like whatever, like this is like fun or whatever, but it's just that. But I think that's sort of if there was a lesson to be learned, that is sort of the lesson of the mindset itself, that off the path is part of the path.
Yeah,
And it's a totally different view of looking at things, because and I honestly, I personally view the motivational mindset, the motivational shtick, or whatever you want to call it, as conditioning of a culture that teaches you that you need to be a certain way and on a path at all times. And I, through kind of like experiencing both paths and trails of thought, um, or ways of thinking, maybe is a better way to put it. I find that sort of conditioning to be more harmful than not, and kind of gets into the that you can do harm while intending to do good. Too much of a good thing at the very
yeah,
least.
yeah.
I don't know if that relates, but that's what it made me
No,
think of at
yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah. I relate to what you're saying. That's what I'm trying to like think. I'm trying to like think what is this author, at least in our context, and defines by meaning, because he has this entire like logos therapy or something like. But before I'm moving to
Yeah,
that, I
it's the
would like
next
to,
section.
yeah. But what about you, Trey? Like, what would you
Yeah, I
consider?
don't know what I heard from your last little piece there, Vito. It's like what you consult, what do you rely on or take refuge on when things get hard? Is that fair to say? Like the going gets hard, or do you get your energy from at that point?
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah,
it's
and I think there's different approaches, and like Boots was saying, the sort of cultural conditioning approaches. You bear down and be a tough guy, and you know you shut out the feelings or whatever, and suck it up and get through it and all that.
yeah.
Um, that narrative might be starting to change a bit. It's very hard to tell.
It depends what circles I mean, I would say it's still very much there. I saw a video on LinkedIn where I was like, people are still on the same old thing.
Yeah, dude, there's a Gary V mindset where the Gary V video, and he's like a motivational speaker in America, and like a woman asks this guy like, what? It's like I don't something like along these lines, right? He basically like cuts her off, and he's like, "Who's the favorite one on your family?" She's like, "Who's the favorite person in your family?" She's like, "I don't know, all of them." Okay, imagine this. Imagine your mom gets shot in the face. All right.
Sheesh.
It's very sad, dude, literally. Like, notice, like visualize that and like see like what drives you, and something like that along the line. Like, what the fuck is going on? You know what it is.
That guy's a bit intense for me.
It's just too intense.
Pretty intense. I mean, but so like, but like I can I entertain all examples, and I would say that the motivational thing won't work in that case. I think that this alternative
It's
that
fear
we're talking
driven.
about,
That's the problem.
uh, well, yeah, I just think that like that's such an extreme case
Yeah.
that is where the motivational stuff will fail, because there like do you like that's such like a traumatic life thing that could happen to you, to where I personally, if someone would approach me with any sort of like motivational mindset thing after that, I would be disgusted. I would actually feel disgust,
Oh,
like
really?
that would be like even considered an approach for dealing with something. Because that's such a difficult life thing for, I would imagine, almost everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so like to me, like the lack of motive, to me that's like something that life hits you with, and it reveals that life is not meant to be motivated all the time. Like that's life is meant to be lived, and like being motivated is really only one way of living. um it's sort of like I mean, really, this is like just a rehashed version of the problem of boredom. Like, what do you do when you're bored? Like, is boredom a bad thing? But like, it's just it's splitting, and not realizing that being bored is the opposite of being creative, and the only time you could ever be creative is when you're leaving being bored. Um, and so, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, like I said, like the whole motivation thing, like I don't think it's bad to be motivated at all. I just feel like the idea around it is that you need to be, and if you aren't, you're lazy. And I'm very, very weary of any time anyone ever talks about being lazy. Like I'm very like when that comes up, I'm immediately weary because like that's a judgment, and and often judgment is a form of separation. And
Yeah,
then you have to really start like diving in with like, why am I judging? What am I separating from? I mean, like, I can't remember who said it, but someone said, whatever you criticize, you're only ignorant of within yourself. And so, like, if I'm saying lazy, I'm afraid of being lazy. And if I'm afraid, then maybe I am actually lazy. I'm just hiding from it.
yeah. What I'm understanding from what you're saying, Coach, it feels like the motivation, whatever, is like very much dependent on or is motivated to increase your survival, right? But I feel
That's
like
often why people do. Yeah, I would say it's a survival thing.
it's a motivation to increase your chance of survival, right? The drive, animalistic drive, you might say. But I feel like this kind of curiosity, I feel is very independent from survival. It's like it feels like okay, if your survival needs are met, now what would you be excited by? Probably stuff like this. Personally, for me, and I feel there's like a distinction there because this sort of stuff doesn't really like aid survival. It maybe it does indirectly, right? Gives you community sense of connection, blah blah blah, but doesn't like directly contribute to your like a survival. Indirectly maybe. Would you agree?
But which part doesn't contribute?
Like being excited by your excitements, like your hobbies, stuff like this. This is like you consider this is like our hobby, right? But some people might
I would
have
say this contributes greatly to your
survival,
survival. I mean,
but
it
the
depends
intention,
how you view like survival because like
yeah,
I mean, we literally call this brain laundry. So just imagine never doing laundry. How you would smell. And like that's not a way to survive. Like I mean, you could get by, but like no one would want to be around you. And then that, I mean, we're very social beings, so not having anyone around you would make your survival miserable. Like, so, like, really, I think when you start breaking these things down, you don't really want to survive. I mean, maybe you do, but like with a lot of conditions. Like, the condition is I want to survive and also like be whole. I want to feel whole. And like there's a lot that's
yeah,
bundled into that, which is like feeling safe and secure. And you want community, which I think is like the biggest one. I think community is the one thing that is the most important out of all the things. And I mean, honestly, if you do any sort of like reading or studying of like extremist groups, you'll find that most people get into these like groups for community. Like every single time I hear a story of someone become joining like a Nazi group or like the QAnon group or just any sort of extremist, even Christian groups, they always start the same way. They didn't have anyone. They were alone, and they found a group that accepted them or guided them. And it honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what follows that. It truly doesn't matter what follows that because they're just going to adopt whatever keeps them within the group that gave them that. And
yeah,
and in my opinion, once these things grow so large, that's where you start seeing inconsistencies because no one joined because of the actual beliefs. They joined for the community and they have their own beliefs that don't necessarily all align, but who cares? We just want to be together. And that's really what people are doing. Um, that's just I mean, I'm like professionally studied this, but I think I've listened to quite a bit of this stuff, and that is the most common pattern I've seen, and I continue to see when I read these people's like, oh, I used to be a Nazi, or I used to be this, or I am this. Like it always starts with something like that.
Tribe over truth.
That's a good one. Tribe over truth.
tribe over truth. It's funny. Yeah, I've studied some of the cult psychology esque thing as well, and adopting their ideology is important to survive in that group, right? So it's almost like a requirement for you to like adopt their ideology.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because you have to be in the in group. Like we can't have like stragglers. Ideology, like, as far as the ideology goes, like we have to all be on the same page. And so you'll fake it till you make it, essentially. Like you need your group, you need your community. Like you're not going to leave that behind. No way. Um, and so you'll do anything, essentially. I mean, it's how cults form. Like just you just do whatever it takes,
Yeah,
and then it's all on a spectrum of like what people can take and what they can bear, like how far they'll go to be included. And people drop and a lot more stay because that's they don't have any other community. Like that's it. They got to commit.
yeah.
Um,
My
and
friend,
so
I'm sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, my friend recently joined, like, I think it's a cult, but I think it's like a Christian group, and there's something called baptizing. See, here's the thing, I'm not familiar with it. It's like with a guy like dunks in water or like comes out of water. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is that it? Is that baptizing?
Yes.
Yeah. So he did that as so probably. So here's what my understanding of that is: you do it like once, but he did it again in that new group. And I asked him like, why would you like what motivates you? It could be like a cult, you know. It's like, and his reasoning is it keeps him like happy, basically. It keeps his state of being like happy. That's why he's in that group. Gets a sense of meaning, community, whatever.
Yeah. I
Not
never have
just
issues with that, but it's like then it's the appeal for like ultimate truth. So it's like, oh, I want this, and we just so happen to have the truth. It's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
a coincidence that the one group that I chose also has the truth.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's yeah.
Hey, Nina.
Hey, isn't that the entire psychology of religion?
Hi.
Out of all the
I
people, hey
mean, yeah.
Nina,
Cheers.
I
out of
mean, no one's gonna join a religion where they're like, "Hey, I think we have the truth. I'm not quite sure
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we're still trying to figure it out." No, like it's like we have it. We know it. Like
yeah,
that's the selling point for sure.
yeah. It's like out of all the people you could have been born, you born somehow a Christian, and luckily that happened to be like the right religion.
Oh
You know,
yeah. I mean,
it's
that's a
like
certain level that people often don't entertain, right? Like it's they don't go to that level. It's all much more low. I don't want to say lower, just a more like centralized
it's a
focus on
more
your own.
narrow focus. Yeah, it's more narrow.
Sure, yeah, narrow. I kind of think of like in circles when it comes to this type of thing. Like what ring are you like
Radius,
referencing? Huh?
like a radius. You mean? What do you mean by circle?
Like just like levels of thinking of like your own existence and its meaning and its relevance to like everything going on. So like, like you're talking about like someone who's born in the US and they're Christian, they will tend to think that that is the truth. And so like to me, like if you imagine like in your mind like someone's standing and there's like a circle under their feet, like it's very small. I kind of consider that like that's the ego, that is
Oh,
you. And then there's a ring outside of that, and that's like a certain like level of your environment. Then there's a circle outside of that, and that's maybe like your
uh,
state, and then your country, and then the planet, and
yeah,
then the it
yeah.
just goes on and on and on.
Hmm.
And so for someone to say, "Well, I'm here, and like I have the truth through my religion," they're not considering like maybe a few rings out where someone was born in Japan and they have a completely different system and they think that's the right way, the exact same way that the Christian thinks that way, and they don't really entertain those thoughts, right?
Yeah,
Their value and thoughts of truth aren't really challenged in that regard, or if they are even spoken of, it's usually not really in a way that even entertains the fact they could be wrong. I mean, because the two things a religion's never going to do is, like I already said, maybe we have the truth. The second thing they're ever going to do is they're never ever going to say that their God is on the losing side. Like they're
yeah,
never going to say like, I don't know, we may not win. Like, like it's like
yeah,
for like the rapture, it's like God's absolutely going to win. It was never. I don't know. It's gonna be a tough fight. Might be close. Might devil might win. Like they would lose their minds. They wouldn't even follow it. Um, and that speaks volumes to me. I mean, I remember being Catholic school, and I didn't like blatantly ask like, what if Satan wins, but I did kind of like ask like, how are we so confident this fight's gonna go well? Like, like
Yeah.
just that kind of stuff. Anyway, Nina, we were talking about I think a good way to summarize it was just like, where do you find like motivation and purpose, and
Yeah.
do you find motivation and purpose, and sort of, Vito was talking about how a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, a lot of like the spirituality and the philosophy and all of that sort of stuff. I think we all agree it's like refreshing, but it may not like, it doesn't like push us to go out and do more or do a specific thing, which I think that it just depends on the person ultimately, but
Yeah.
it's not to the same effect as like being motivated, um, you know, to survive and thrive, like, go make a ton of money and all that sort of stuff. That's
Or
essentially
like
what we
save a
were
lot
just
of
talking about.
people, you know.
Yeah. Like, you don't leave book club and be like, all right, I need to go save the world. Usually we leave book
Maybe
club and
Nina
think the
does, you
world's in a
know.
better place.
Maybe she does. Maybe she's the only one.
No, I don't think so. I think though that it's funny how it comes up in conversations where you want to like share sometimes with people, but then it's not always like well received, and that's always a funny situation when you're like, no, like we talked about this really awesome thing, and this is how I feel about it, and then you like share it with someone, and you like expect them to have the epiphany that you had, and they just don't, and you're like, oh, it's like a strange time too.
Oh, I get that. I run into that
Yeah, me too.
a bit. Um, well, good to have everyone here. I don't think Sonic will join today. They haven't said anything, but we'll see. So apologies for the further delay. I was not feeling well last week. Still not feeling the greatest, but I'm like so much better from last week. I felt like just a sludge ball last week. Like, I was just like dragging, and my head felt like it was 3 or 4 times its size, and um I was really waiting
Trippy.
throughout the day because I was like, maybe I'll feel better after like taking a leave or something. And I was like, I cannot think. Like, I just could not think, and I was not going to be as receptive to conversation and thought as I like to be for book club. So I appreciate everyone being willing to push back a week.
It was good for me. I
Yeah, of
just
course.
came to Canada yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out
You
for
just
me
got back?
because I didn't have time to read last week, so it's good
Oh,
for me.
perfect. Imagine that. Imagine that our
Well,
spontaneous event worked out perfectly for book club.
It's your turn, Ray. Next time I come on the call, I'll ask, did you read the book, Ray?
I was
Yeah.
ready to say I confess I pulled a veto. Like I would have joined the
Uh-oh.
call and say I didn't read. Sorry.
I did a video.
Well,
Funny.
I'm glad it worked out. Before we start, I mean, so like I think we had I don't know. I feel like it's been a couple of weeks at least, and I feel like we had some like people were doing like some like pretty specific things during the time. Rave, I know you said you were doing like a staycation, but it was like your personal retreat, right?
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
I
mhm.
took a week between Christmas and New Year's and just stayed in my house and did a meditation retreat by myself. Like didn't talk to anyone, cut myself off. Yeah.
Well, how was that?
Um it was, I guess, smoother than I thought. Um no real rushes of anxiety or anything. A little bit of restlessness towards the end, like I'm kind of ready to leave my house already. Um
Did you talk to
but you
anyone
know,
digitally? Like, was it
Yeah.
like, or just like, was it like a no physical communication, or like did digital communication count, or
um
were you leaving that out of your mind completely?
it pretty much counted. So the what was it, like the first night I connected with a group that I really enjoy, a meditation group, but after that, yeah, it was like 6
Yeah, I
straight
could
days
tell
of,
you didn't answer my text, so
oh, I
Oh,
didn't even
that's
receive them.
big.
That's
You
the
didn't
thing, like
answer
I
Nina's
don't.
text? What the fuck,
no,
Ray?
I
Either
sent
you're
Leaving
you
Nina
dead,
on red.
either, either you're dead or you're in a
I
meditation retreat.
I really just sent like a vibes text. I was like sending you good vibes on your journey. That was it. And
I would
then
have liked that. I was like, yeah, because I had my phone on airplane mode the whole time, so maybe it just
Oh,
doesn't receive stuff on airplane mode. I
yeah.
don't know, but yeah,
sure, okay.
no, because other people texted me too, and like I didn't get it. But yeah, that was a little, because you turn your phone on after that period of time. It's like, oh, no one texted me. um, but
I
yeah,
could have done this without, with my phone on. Who knew?
yeah, it was cool. It was I think the biggest thing I saw into was endurance, like the little movements of the mind that are not helpful for finding peace and lasting in a situation like that. Like the little thoughts about, and it kind of ties into the reading we did about like hope for the future
Was
and how it's
laughing
actually an
up.
agitating
But
thing.
anyway, it's
Of
good,
like,
it's
oh, I can't
working,
wait till
it's
I'm done
great.
with this. All
Thanks.
of a sudden now you're discontent with what you have in front of you and you're restless, and
Mhm.
it just, in this kind of environment, it just doesn't work to get restless. Like even the tiniest amount and you'll start to go crazy. It's just
Mhm.
the ultimate balance between not being too sleepy and not being too restless, just that energy balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an experience that I could thank you for because so I went to Richmond for New Year's, and I don't know,
What
it
is
was
that?
probably Richmond, Virginia. It's just
Oh,
I
okay.
went to see my sister and brother-in-law. I just
Oh,
spent
okay.
the New Year's with them. Um, I, it's probably because I ate too much meat and cheese. But I don't know what happened. My stomach was like awful. Like I was in like a lot of pain. Where like we were having like a get together, and I just went to my room. I laid down, and I was just like curled up in pain. And
Mm.
like in that moment, and it happens all the time now because we've talked about so much. I was like, Rafe says I should meditate when I'm in pain, and so and I was like, I can't sit up. But then I also said, well, there's no such thing as as a specific form of meditation. So I meditated in a fetal position,
Okay.
and I
Nice.
just I just like focused on breathing, and I really tried to just put this just to focus on that, not think about the pain, but just like let the pain be the pain. And I had this moment. It was very like it was a window of time where my mind shifted to um where I just had this distinction. It wasn't like a separation. It felt different. It was like distinct where I could accept that my body was in pain, and I saw that I was recognizing or I was acknowledging the pain, but I was not like enveloped in the pain anymore. I think that's the
Mhm.
best way I could put it into words. And the it didn't get rid of the pain. Like it's not like I became numb and like it just went away. But
Yeah.
the one thing that I thought was really interesting was so anytime I go to Richmond, my allergies are like that's just the worst thing ever. Um, my nose, because I was just breathing through my nose, um, it like opened up. Like the minute I had this experience, like my breathing became very clear. And I thought that was interesting. So that was my brief window of experience meditating while in crazy pain because I ate too much meat and cheese for the holidays.
And you raved the emotion, is it? Gotcha. No,
Yeah, that's an extremely valuable
I have a question,
instinct to
Boots.
train.
So,
I definitely could see that, like making that, because like I recognize that there are probably those who kind of like are in that either there or get there just by just like sheer habit. Like that's just how it is, right? Like because like for me it took, you know, it's weird to say it took a lot of effort, but it took I guess maybe it took a lot of like centering and focus, or like or just
Yeah.
sort of like or like I don't know, I don't know the words for it, because anything talking about like effort doesn't quite like capture, because I wasn't like doing anything. I was just like I literally had my knees to my chest, I was hugging, and I was just breathing through my nose. It was just like Rave said to meditate in pain.
I have a question,
So
Boots. So talk to me about like the relation. So let's say, so basically, you're saying you had a sensation that, and the relationship that you had with the sensation is an experience of pain, right? So it's, so let's say when you realize that when your body, when you said you made that subtle distinction where the body is feeling pain, but you are someone being aware of your body feeling pain. Like, what was the relationship between you and the sensation? Like talk to
I was just okay with it. I was it didn't like because like at first it was like a problem. It was a huge problem, and I there was a lot of like part of the initial experience was like everyone's in the room and I'm here in pain, and like there's just so many other things associated with being in pain. There was when is the pain going to be done? There was like, is the pain worse than I'm even able to recognize? Like, should I seek further help because of my pain, which caused like just like a mind racing experience too. Like I was like feeling anxious, which also increased the pain. And so when I got to the point of my body is in pain, and that's my body is in pain, and I realized that I like it was like identification, I guess. Like I like a different sense of I was not in pain. I was experiencing pain through my body. It didn't have anything to do with like like me. It was just that little like switch, and I mean, like I said, it didn't remove the pain, but it definitely led to like more calm, and like the physiological thing was just the breathing, which I don't really know what that's about, but um, it was neat at the very least.
So are
Yeah.
you implying that the sensation of pain, so was the sensation of pain still pain, or was that an assumption from like an ego side?
I I mean, like I said, I still my nerves didn't just click off and I
No, no,
stopped
yeah,
feeling pain, but like I said, it was like think about how um you talk about pain when you're experiencing it. It is in a sense like your identity.
yeah,
Like and you kind of like attach it to yourself as a badge. Like I am experiencing pain. I am in pain. I am pain. Like that's
yeah.
usually for me how the thoughts kind of roll into my head. And so meditating, which is often associated as like very calm and peaceful, and there's nothing out of place. Um, Meditating while there's something very clearly out of place, kind of like I guess challenges that assumption, and like you know, it, I mean, so I don't know. Like I said, it didn't remove it. Like I still felt like like my like stomach like hurting and cramping, and like I still needed to like be in a certain position to not like feel more pain, like but I guess I wasn't like stressing over it or really concerned about it. Like I guess like I was, maybe a
You
word for it was like
accepted
with
it.
it. Yeah, I
Uh,
accepted it and I was like with it. I wasn't thinking about the pain to come. I wasn't thinking about the pain increasing or decreasing. I was just with the pain. I was experiencing pain. Um and that, gave me well, more mental calm, if anything.
Hmm.
The anxiety element definitely was gone.
Wait, did you say the anxiety was gone?
Yeah, my anxiety for like what the pain meant and where the pain would lead was much less than before. Because that's you.
Interesting.
I mean, and that was that's a huge thing. Like
Yeah,
anytime like you experience
mhm,
like pain or anything, it's like, especially anything with the body. Like I mean, I grew up in like a medical household, so it's like I have all
mhm.
these self-diagnosis things I could do. Like could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be this? And like it's relevant, right? Like like if I
Yeah.
continue to feel pain after like 6 hours or something, but it's like, but it was just having the moment of like of just just like being in pain. And that was that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so you're saying like the relationship that you have with the sensation was a choice of yours rather than something that's happening to you. Not like I'm not saying the sensation like disappears, but I feel the interpretation, the reaction to the sensation is something that you are doing because it
Mhm.
often feels like it's
Sure,
not
yeah.
in our control. It feels like it's happening to us. But you're saying it felt like for the first time, I I was making it happen and I just stopped it or something like that. That's what my understanding.
Well, I think there's elements of it that are just out of your control because there is that physical component that is just the biology piece,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I clearly
physiology
couldn't do a
piece.
thing about the pain. Like, you know what I mean? It's I couldn't. If I could,
But
I'd just make it stop. I'd just like snap my fingers and it'd be
yeah,
done.
but there is a lot of studying now that because a lot of people live with chronic pain about how all those other factors that you mentioned contribute to chronic pain. So it's just like how emotions, psychological issues, like traumas, can actually cause physical pain. So there is some talk about how like meditation and things can help in that. So you don't realize how much you tense and have physical reaction when with
Mhm.
different emotions too. So it's like that
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. So it exacerbates that pain.
I mean, we even talked about a relevant quote to that. Like Alan Watts, there was an Alan Watts quote of like where the reaction to cold and how like shivering is the tightening of your muscles and it's like resisting the cold. It's trying to be warm.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't want to be cold. And
Mm-hmm.
relaxing and just being cold.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is so first of all, yeah, that's like a taste of freedom, right? Calm in the
Mm-hmm.
midst of pain
Mm-hmm.
and turmoil.
yeah,
That's it. It's not that is the misconception that meditation is about making all your experiences lovely. But it's really just the capacity to say yes to more and more of nice and not so nice things. The terminology they often use, which I find very helpful, is that, right, there are sensations in the body that are being contacted through your senses, right? No control over that. That's just by
yeah,
virtue of being alive. You're just getting hit constantly by sense information. And that sense information can either be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And also, no control about that. It just comes in, and the mind automatically feels it as like this is good, this is not good, or it's neutral, neither good nor not good. No real control there. But then the critical juncture, they say, is what's your relationship to that, right? And I have a teacher who really just puts this very simply but powerfully of like, what is happening, and what is my relationship to that?
damn,
And
that's
so,
insane.
Mm.
yeah, and that captures so much of it. Of it's like, yeah, there's this thing happening. And okay, am I okay with it? And at first, yeah, oh, no, I'm not. I want it to go away. And it's important to just, oh, okay, there's aversion in the mind. And you can, investigate, oh, what's it like when there's aversion in the mind? It's tight, tense, there's suffering. And then if there's the capacity to relax with it, oh, okay, I can allow this. Now there's more equanimity in the mind, peace and calm, even though those unpleasant sensations are still there. They're still exactly the way they were before, but now there's accepting in the mind and, check that out. What's that experience like? And the more the mind sees that, and it's just through clear seeing, it starts to automatically like, oh, painful sensation, and just like, bam, you have that instinct, oh, be mindful, right? It's just like a thing that pops up without you because it's just a training that happens. It's very unconscious in a way that the way how the mind learns.
Well,
For
that
me,
like
sometimes
I'm sorry.
it's just real quick. It feels like as if there's a fire, right? And the fire is like the pain. And it's the difference between being in the fire, like getting burnt, or the capacity to like step back a bit and it's like not so hot. And yet the pain is dancing in the same exact way, but there's a way in which you can back up enough to the point where you're just like hanging out watching a campfire if the mind's like super balanced with it.
Mm.
What are you saying?
Well,
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
I was gonna just bring up the book. Um,
What?
this reminds it's
What
Book?
book?
I don't know if you guys are okay with me talking about the book, but I
No,
was gonna bring it
please.
up. No, there is a great part in that about choice,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it was something
Yeah.
I highlighted that I really liked and have been thinking about a lot lately. Um, it's right along the lines with what you were saying, Rafe. It's just about that you always have that choice. Um, whether it's just your attitude, or you can make even a bigger choice in a situation that might be more tangible, but it's like I think even just that as down to the attitude piece, um, kind of changed a lot for me after reading it. I think it's pretty awesome to think about how you do have that choice in any situation. And it's like
Yeah.
your instinct pops in, you have that like burst of emotions. And if you sit with it, and then you can make like you make the good choice if there is such a thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
in the
part hit
book,
me too.
yeah, in the book, the author mentions something along the lines of you have the stimulus, right? And you have the response to
Mhm.
the stimulus, and your
Mhm.
power lies in in the space between the stimulus and the response. That's where you can actually
Mhm.
make the choice. And I want to like ask you a question on what you previously mentioned, Ray. I'm really trying to like understand because like foods, I've been having like this very unpleasant sensation. I don't know, like back of my spinal cord and stuff like that. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like practice my letting go and all that shit. I'm gonna like rave this fucking sensation. You know what I mean? uh, but I really try to understand. I'm like, I have a interpretation of okay, this sensation is painful, right? Like I feel uncomfortable with the sensation. But what motivates me to choose? What motivates me to have that bias? What if it is like I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm not saying it's wrong for the sensation to make me uncomfortable. But I'm asking how did I end up with that bias? And why not what makes pleasant things pleasant and unpleasant things unpleasant? How am I even like
Yeah.
concluding?
Yeah. Yeah, I know you brought up that point before when I mentioned pleasant and unpleasant that why should it be that way? Why does the mind, right? It's like as if there's some amount of control already happening that I like this. And I think in those situations, the thing I find very useful, right? You feel some type of sensation and there's automatically some judgment about this is pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah,
And it starts to get really subtle, but really liberating when you can start to see the activity of the mind as something that's not really you either. So the body's not really me, but the mind is just responding, and the mind is doing its best to take care of the body, right? So the
yeah,
mind interpreting something as pleasant or unpleasant and often automatically chasing after the unpleasant, pushing away, or no, chasing after the pleasant, pushing away the unpleasant, is just a conditioned response of the mind to try to help out the body the best that it knows it can, right? And so I think a lot of these why questions just come down to the mind is so conditioned to want to survive, and
yeah,
pain and pleasure are the best signals that are available in the environment to sustain that. Um, so
yeah,
there's layers in there. There's tons of layers, and I think the key is just keep backing up. Like as long as you're noticing judgment, just keep backing up. So there's like, oh, there's unpleasantness. Okay, back up. What's my relationship to that? Oh, wanting to get rid of it. All right, back up. Oh, it's just a version in the mind. I can be with that, right? Okay,
yeah.
that's okay. So it's somewhere. Um, yeah.
Reminds me of like this Alan Watts talk. I don't know whether you guys heard it or not. Where he talks about the dream. If you're with the God and if you're asking, if you can dream any dream that you can, you'll probably want a dream that is like full of surprises. Because if you're in a
Yeah,
dream,
you'll ultimately like work yourself to where you are now, to where
yeah,
you
Yep.
yeah.
That's I love that one.
Yeah, yeah, that was one of the first things that got me back into Watts, because I had a long period where I didn't like listen to anything, and I heard that and I was like, holy shit, yeah, that's true. I was like, yeah, it's probably right. And then I remember having like an initial critique where I was like, man, what a kind of like a privileged position, you know, to say like, yeah, I would choose this, and that thing that's where sort of that, you know, that a lot of thought comes from, because like, you know, what if your situation was awful? Like, would you really? And I mean, maybe you'd spend a lot more time not being where you are, but you'd eventually wind up there again. I mean, eventually, if we're talking about like infinite, eventually, yes. It's kind of like the monkeys and typewriters thing. It's like a million monkeys can type on a typewriter and will eventually like produce Hamlet.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That quote that was brought up, I think goes along the lines of everything can be taken from a person other than, and the one thing that can never, you know, be taken is their ability to choose how they respond. Well, it's interesting to me, because that's like one of the most popular quotes from this book. There was something I noted that I wanted to talk about in relation to that, because he said something that was very much something that, like, you know, Watts talks about. I'm trying to see if I can find the direct quote. There's him talking about escaping. I know it's close to that.
The code is in Man's Search to Meaning.
There's a point where he's talking about, like, basically people are like tied directly to their environment. Like how, and like Alan Watts talks about how you
I know
can't
what you're talking
separate.
about.
Yeah, Watts talks about how you can't remove or separate an organism from its environment, how they are
Oh
directly
yeah.
related.
Uh-huh.
And he mentions that here somewhere. Can't find my note where I usually circle page numbers, but I don't know why I can't find it right now. It's like the very beginning of this. Let's see.
Yeah. Watts mentions that you exist. Your existence, your ego, only gets its meaning in relationship to others. That's what he said. Something like that.
Uh,
Oh, this is bugging me because I remember what you're talking about.
yeah, I don't know. This is wild. Like my memory's failing me because like I remembered it on like very visual. So I'm like, I remember what the page looked like, but I'm like, did I really not circle the one page I'm looking for right now? Like, is this the anomaly? Like, what the heck? Because I'm finding
Do you
other ones I
remember?
circled.
You remember? Because I have a PDF. So do you remember exactly like any little phrase? Because I can just Google or whatever, search it through the PDF.
I mean, you could maybe environment or
I
surroundings, maybe.
did environment,
Is it
but it
around
didn't
the
seem.
part and this is a part that stood out to me along the same lines, but it could be something separate where he talks about the influence of the environment can reduce you down to just the most basic in your mind, just
Oh,
the desire for bread and the desire to avoid getting hit, and that's like your entire world.
I
Is
think
it?
it's related. I found the line. I finally found the line. Oh, and it is circled. Oh my gosh, guys, help me. All right. I don't know what to do with myself. In attempting this psychological presentation and the
Oh,
psychopathological explanation of the typical characteristics of a concentration camp inmate, I may give the impression that the human being is completely and unavoidably influenced by his surroundings. So,
I had it highlighted too, and I was staring right at it the whole time.
Nina, we need help.
Oh my
It's because we're
gosh.
looking for it.
This is what, Rave, I read this to you out loud
Yeah, you
that
did.
day.
Yeah.
That's wild. Seriously? Really?
Uh-huh.
See, we are all on the same wavelength, guys.
Oh
So
my
so
god.
okay, finally, after like spending 5 minutes looking for this, I can get to my point. So we have like um there's a couple details here. Like, 'cause first we have, everything could be stripped from a person besides their ability to choose. Like that is like their power. It's like how you respond to what happens to you, how you respond to events. Um, and then we also have this idea of that, you know, how much are you a product of the environment? I don't know. I mean, especially when you come down to people. But there's definitely an influence of your environment around you because your environment raises you. That's where you grow up and it influences you. I mean, at some scale, like, we could all grow up in separate parts of the country, but the country's ideals are placed upon us. We can grow up in, the same state and we have like a level of state ideals and national ideals that are imposed on us. But I guess I was sort of left with the question is like, well, when our environment kind of like leave us with sort of like a notebook or a shorthand of things to choose from. Like you may not know what choices there are or even know like what's available because of your environment. Um, and so that really kind of launched me into a lot of thought of like, because like by itself, like saying, well, I have the power to choose is a very freeing statement. Like I'm like, well, I always have a power because I can choose to do or to not do, to be or not be. And at the same time, like, do we not have like sort of I hate to like say limitation, but don't we sort of have like a I don't know, like a quick reference or a certain level of like influence on what we see as of like options of how to respond? Because I'm imagining, because I worked with kids for a little while, and I kind of like envision like this kid's growing up with these kind of parents, and so like what's the long term of that? And like that definitely has an impact of like how you choose, and even like a right choice may on a certain scale may not be even like the best choice. And I mean, I know we're not really talking about like the best choice of an option, like who's to say, but it's just like I don't know, I got really stuck on that. I'm like, what creates our responses and decisions? Like what sort of like template do we use to respond to those things, and are we actually like, is that actually a power or is that just another level of like our environment? I'm not sure yet, but it did leave me with that thought.
Well, it's like there definitely is a combination because there are people who end up breaking free from the choices that you would think their environment. Well, I guess that's the other thing, right? Because I'm thinking of it in the terms of like a kid going down the same path as their substance abusing parents.
Mm-hmm.
So then if they choose to go against that, that's still a product of their environment, right? Because it's like they saw the
Anti-environment.
environment and they made the choice. Yeah. So it's yeah.
I feel you only have power over things that you consciously recognizes of your own. That's a nuanced distinction I would like to make, because I feel everyone can delude saying that, oh, I have like power over this pain that is like happening to you. There's nothing much you could do about it. But I do feel you have power over the interpretation of the sensation when the sensation hits, because it's something of your doing.
Mhm.
And I feel that's like a very important distinction. But then the actual question is, what is under your control? Like, you know,
Yeah,
Your
exactly. And
response.
and like where and so like further on that, like what is the control and recognition and hate or not hate of the control? What does that even mean? Because like when you're really like any form of control is a hidden form of fear. Like right wherever I want control, like why do I want control? Like why am I hung up on that? Why do I need it? And so like I don't know, like it kind of like thinking about my experience with pain. Like I didn't find bliss by I don't know, like, it wasn't the, oh, like I can just accept it and now I'm in control. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's not what brought the experience. It was, I mean, we've talked about like this the acceptance and surrendering to the lack of control, to like just the moment. Just like, yep, just is what it is. And so I like I said, I've read this book a few times, and that quote always like just felt really good. Where I'm like, yeah, I always have the power to choose, and I feel good now because I recognize I have the power. But now I'm just sort of like, that comfort of having the power, like, what is that? Like, knowing I have this ace up my sleeve, I'm like, I get to choose. Like, but then like, what happens when I find a point where I don't have any choice at all? Do I like? I mean, sure, I can say, well, I get to choose and not be okay with it, but like, is there an extent where I'm going to start lying to myself?
Yeah.
Because like,
Choose to not make a choice.
like muddling my discontent is running away, right? Like,
Yeah.
not being happy with your situation is like what's wrong with that response?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like I guess like ruminating over it is suffering, but like just being unhappy and being like, oh, I choose to be unhappy. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just thoughts. I don't know. I have no conclusion to this. Like, this is
No,
just this is
here's
what
the
my
thing,
brain.
though.
This is what my brain was.
No, here's the thing about here's a question. Here's a question, right? Like, why am I thinking this stuff, right? The people who didn't think like this are probably dead. That's the problem in the past.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If someone just went, you know what, fuck this, survival is not meaningless. All of them are just dead. The only people who survive today are everyone are had a bias towards survival, and people who didn't
They
have
were
a
not okay with discontent.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Today we have like the luxury to like not care that much about our like very basic survival needs, like food, shelter, water. We can like think about this kind of stuff. But it is interesting because I've been reading like this David Hawkins, Alan Watts, even he says you're like, let go, man. Yeah, it was this sensation comes, yeah, fucking let go. I'm like, bro, how the fuck can I let go of something that I don't even feel like I'm holding on to? It feels like, you know what I mean? Yeah. How would I let go of
I
something?
mean, something is right.
Yeah, and I feel realizing that you are holding on to some aspect of it, I think is step number one. I think letting go is a consequence of choosing that the choice you made to hold on doesn't serve you anymore. You know what I mean? For example, let's say if I was holding a pencil, and if you ask me let go of the pencil, it's very easy for me to let go because I am holding the pencil. But if I'm not even holding the pencil, and if you say, yo, let go of the pencil, I'll be like confused, right? Like, how can I let go of the pencil if I'm not even holding on to it? But I feel that's the predicament that most people face. How can I let go of the sadness if I feel like the sadness is happening to me rather than I'm causing the sadness?
I think letting go is an acquired thing. Like it's something that gets trained. It's not something you can just drop easily, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Pick a complex skill like uh I don't know, my mind went right to basketball, right? You make a shot or something. It's a
Uh-huh.
thing you train on doing. You can't just go out there and say make it. uh,
Yeah.
but you can train and get good, and then you want to make it. You can probably make it. So similar with letting go. Letting go, I think the crucial ingredient for letting go is seeing clearly. And
With honesty as well, right?
the more you see clearly, the more you can see the way in which you're holding on to something. And once you see that, you can like see that it's not yours, and then the letting go happens more automatically.
Yeah.
Um, which is why there's some spots where it's just there's tightness, there's suffering, and you can be, fully equipped with all the spiritual knowledge about I should let go, and yet you can't because it's just the mind is trained to hold on. And that's the way it is in that moment.
Are you telling? Are you like saying that letting go is like a consequence of something?
It's dependent, right? It's something that happens depending on conditions. So as long as you're seeing the world through the lens of your, really constricted desires and fears, it's not a very supportive condition for letting go because you see a lot of things as yours and you. And it's not until you step outside that a bit that you can really start to see clearly that no, these things are never mine. And once that happens, it's
Yeah.
simile I like is like it's like getting a letter with in the mail with the wrong name. You don't get hung up on it. You just send it back. Oh, this isn't mine.
Yeah.
I
True.
I don't know why when you're talking about that, it like in my mind, it like felt no different than like I was thinking it's like a happening, and it was like the same sort of happening as like a flower blooming, because like
Yep.
a flower doesn't just bloom. Like there's a lot of things that have to happen before that. It doesn't just say okay, I'm blooming,
Yeah.
and like letting go, just the way it's talked about a lot, definitely feels very similar to that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because flower
Um,
doesn't bloom with any expectations. You know what I mean? That's the thing. We all try to bloom with certain expectation to or certain bias. However,
Well, I
flower
mean,
just doing that is thing.
well, expectation could be like living in the future, which I don't think I don't think really plants have
The
the same sort
cognition.
of I don't think they have the same sort of consciousness that even cares about the future, right? Because like if they
Yeah.
do, they'd start moving around and not be stepped on. But they just kind of stay where they are. And that's how they are. And um, I don't know, but that's you talking about that. That was my first mental visual.
yeah, and that's I mean, it's a very often used analogy, right? Of the cultivation process of spirituality is, I think, one of the deepest insights is seeing that literally everything is dependent on everything else. I mean, I think Alan Watts says this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for that reason, everything is always changing. And like seeing that the word life is completely interchangeable with the word change,
Yeah.
um, like seeing that the extent of it is just way beyond what the mind can grasp onto. And it's just this basic awareness, seeing it is
Yeah.
what's just in the same way that the sunlight brings forth the flower, seeing it creates the conditions where the mind can let go.
I have
Yeah.
no idea why, but just hearing like this discussion is like a huge, just like gave me the biggest sense of relief. I have no idea why though.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I just dropped, but
It's
I
a
dropped
it's a
it.
pain laundry, man. Like we are like.
That's
Oh,
good.
I don't know why. I mean, no, like so I was thinking like we one of the times I really tuned into this was watching Planet Earth because I remember
The
watching an
channel.
episode. Planet Earth. It's a documentary by like
Oh.
that has David Attenborough narrating,
Oh.
and there's this point where it's like they talk about the glaciers, and then this algae that forms under the glaciers because some sunlight can get through, and the algae brings krill, and the krill brings like you know, penguins and whales and all that. And the penguins bring seals, and it's just like, what the? That just fucking chain reaction, just like out of freaking. I mean, like, and then it's like, where does it start? Like, is it the algae? Is it the glacier? Is it the sun? And it's like, it's none of it. It's all a thing, and it's all a change. It's just an ever changing thing. Um, and we're given this like ability to see that and to perceive and like just kind of like step back from it because our mind is so great and we can like be in awe, and then that's when you recognize where you've been like really sticky of like well, things aren't going my way, and it's like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know anything's out of place? I mean, I'm sure the krill think things are going very poorly when the penguins show up.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of this Buddhist concept of impermanence. I feel life itself is like a reminder, reminder that all of existence is just impermanent.
Well, that's what I was saying. Life is impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
There's
just
nothing in life
change.
that's not impermanent.
I feel that a flower captures impermanence more than like a human. Or like nature, I feel, captures impermanence.
Oh,
Like this fall, winter, autumn.
well, it's
But
much easier to observe the entire thing of a flower than it is,
yeah,
a human life. It
yeah,
usually takes a lot longer.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
I see it most powerfully in the surface of a large body of water. My goodness. Just constant change in like
Mm-hmm.
perfect harmony. I can
Yep.
just stare at a lake forever.
It's the ocean for me. Like every time I go, like my most recent trip to the beach, I was just watching the waves, and I got into like just a mental space that I recognized while taking like psychedelics. I was just like, so this is how they did it before drugs. Like
Yeah.
just go to the beach. Like, I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
I think I even remember it was actually before I drank a psilocybin tea. I was watching the wind blow through leaves of a tree and just watching how like they moved, and it reminded me of like the gateless gate thing where it's like these monks are looking at a flag, and someone was like, "Oh, the wind's moving the flag," or "The flag's moving around the wind," and they're having a debate about it. Um, just stuff like that. You're just like, wow.
What was the right answer to that one? Like your mind is moving both of them or something?
Some patriarch monk said, "It's not the wind or the flag; it's the mind."
Yeah, yeah. That's when mindfulness really feels like psychedelics is when your mind is quiet enough that you see the moving of the environment and the moving of your thoughts with it. That's what happened
Hmm.
to me on my last retreat I did with other people, where it was like there was some event, like I didn't hear one of the bells and I missed one of the meditation sessions, and I had enough mindfulness to be like, ooh, let's see what happens in the mind because of this. And sure enough, there was like a wave of anxiety, like anxious thoughts, like, oh no, I'm missing the retreat. And then like after with each one, it's like, yup, there goes that one, there goes that one. Oh, I'm a terrible yogi. Yup, okay, there goes that one. And then it's like, oh, I'm paranoid about time now. Yup. And it's just like a wave, right? They crest and fall. And the event's over, it's in the past, and now it's gone. And it just totally moves with everything else. Very trippy.
Hmm.
You my guys might not know this. There's another guy called Lester Levinson. All right, I think I mentioned it before. Are you guys familiar with David Hawkins?
Hmm.
So he like mentored him, and he had like this method of letting go, right? And basically, it's just like bringing up the feeling and just choosing to let go. You know what I mean? Which I never really understood, but I'm thinking I'm slowly understanding what it means after like listening to you guys. Because we're all trying to like let go of something that is like not in our control at all, or it feels like it's not in our control, and we straight up ignore the stuff that is in our control. And I feel that's what like Carl Jung like classifies as shadow, right? Something that you are causing, but you're like oblivious to the fact that you're causing. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but yeah. But so what happened to like a book thing though? So
Mhm.
the book club, like no. So what chapter are we on, or are we on exactly? The book.
Oh, so we just finished the first section after
Perfect.
this. So we will start the logotherapy in a nutshell. And if memory serves, this point, I feel like, because everything has just been this time at the camp, like it's been all the experiences and a lot of that content. This section's a little different. And I remember, I can't remember what it was specifically, but I remember reading that and I was like, okay, like that was good. And then like something in something in this next section, I was like, whoa. Like when the first and second time I read this, I was like, this is like really, really good. But I can't remember what it is, so it's gonna be a surprise. We'll
Yeah.
see if I agree. We'll see if I agree with my past self because they seem to disagree on a lot. So
Yeah, it's part two, something I keep rereading.
um one last thing to me, and of course if you guys have anything you want to highlight, we can do that too. One thing I really liked, kind of gave me like chills when I read it, was when he talks about the woman who, because he was talking about apathy a lot. He talked about apathy a whole lot and like just some submission to fate, which we've talked a whole lot about, like, you know, which is it, all that, where's power lie. Um, he talks about this woman who she knew she was going to die, and when they talked, she was fine. Like she was like doing really well. She was like in high spirits, and she says something to the tune of like, "I'm really happy that like fate has like dished its worst out on me, or like it's hit me so hard." Because like before I was like not really thankful. I was spoiled, um, and then she talks about a tree that was her friend, and that she like received responses from the tree like when she would talk to it, and the response was like, I'm here, I am here, I am life. And that to me was like, because like it's just wild to hear something like that come from this sort of situation, come from like a person who, I mean, we don't know for sure, but like has really, they're likely Jewish, and like that, I don't know. That's sort of like talking to a tree and having this sort of experience isn't very Jewish in my ignorant
Oh,
mind. Like, like I don't. I know a few Jewish people, and like, I don't know how they would feel about it, but like I don't. I mean, just with I can tell you, Christians definitely don't have like experiences where they like, yeah, like I have like this sort of like existential like experience with like some non-human thing that said something so profound. And I thought that was really like I said, it gave me chills, and I don't know why.
interesting.
Yeah, I had it highlighted as well.
Nina, I'm just looking at your PDF pretty much.
It's a shared PDF that I didn't know was shared.
Yeah,
It
basically.
reminds me of a similar anecdote that got me was the one where he talks about the guy who has a dream about the exact date where he's gonna get out.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
It ended up killing him. And then I thought was a very witty or insightful comment that he was like, "Well, it looks like he ended up getting liberated on that day after all." That was like pretty poetic, I thought.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
we don't play life like a drama, We're like so we don't we don't observe the drama. We're like so in the drama.
yeah.
You're saying
That
something?
story kind of arcs to the point I wanted to bring up before we end, which is really how he closed on reflecting on the role of hope. Really, I mean, this is one of the themes I've been paying most closely attention to. So, like, the lack of hope can kill you, but holding on to that hope, I mean, I really appreciated how he demonstrated what life was like after they got out, and that these people sort of holding on to their images about what freedom would be like really struggled, because anytime you're holding on to that kind of image, reality is going to be a lot different. And it was kind of almost heartbreaking to hear him coming back to the people, and they just didn't care. They're like, uh whatever the responses were. One was like, "Well, we have suffered too," and I just like my stomach dropped for him.
Like,
Hearing that, I'm imagining like people. The grocery store is no longer stocking their favorite tea, and they're like, "Well, we suffered too." you know,
Wolf.
I was
yeah.
actually looking. You probably, I was asking my friend out of everything did like Germans choose to like genocide? It makes no sense to me. Like, how did like a person come to the conclusion? You know what? This group of people is a problem. Fuck them. And my friend said something like, if in the history, apparently in Germany, like many Jews were coming and they're like taking over, and some of like the more wealthy Germans are actually Jewish, and they're like saying Germany is the new Jerusalem or something like that, right? And I feel like I'm hypothesizing, right? Of course, I don't know. But what if like the guy who's like torturing the Jews, and probably his justification is like these people are the ones responsible for like taking away my livelihood. It's time to like give it back to them or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like the same dynamic that you are saying. Like we suffered too, and that gives me a reason to do all these cruel things. Like almost like
Mhm.
justifies me doing this cruel things back to you. Gives me like a reason.
I think that's a necessary part of the outgrouping that comes. I mean, it's dehumanizing, right? So this has been extensively studied in the wake of this through social psychology. Um, and as soon as you make a group of people an outgroup to the point where you dehumanize them, you're capable of all kinds of things against them
Mm-hmm.
because you don't see them as fellow people. You're just treating them like, whatever. Um, so yeah, and I think that is documented how all that political stuff. I mean, I don't know much about it either, but I know Germany got beat down so bad at World War I, so there
Yeah,
was a big revenge narrative and lots of stuff.
yeah, and it's like I, maybe like I'm asking, is it like an outlet for people to like express their frustration on life itself?
Um, well, think of just hate as a movement of the mind, right? I
Yeah,
mean, this is something you talked about a lot, that hate is just one way of expressing that there's something about this present moment that I don't like.
yeah,
Uh, and it's taking that feeling and projecting it outwards onto something in your environment, making that the enemy, and then, buying into this belief that if I destroy this enemy, that feeling will no longer be here and I can accept my present moment. And that shows up in small and huge ways. And I think that's what you get is, for whatever reason, it could be all kinds of things that you're upset about or you buy into some political narrative or whatever. But you've projected your dissatisfaction with life onto these people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's now your mission to eliminate them.
I mean, it's often the downfall of any sort of pursuit because usually the outcome of such a thing is then the living with what you did to accomplish what you accomplished, something that can't be experienced until it's done. And then the outcome is nothing of what you thought it would be. I mean, if you imagine, like, I mean, I'm sure there's people who like committed atrocities and they could live with themselves afterwards to a degree, but something must have come up that was a thorn in their side, outcome of everything that they had done. And you don't. I mean, because like all these things are like for relief, right? They're all pursuits for freedom and for peace, and they're just shaking a snow globe, and they're like, "Why isn't everything settled?"
yeah. That's crazy. What I'm like getting out of this entire like talk is like the what freedom really means. Not freedom like from like suffering. I feel even like pleasure is suffering. You know what I mean? The fact that you need pleasure in order. There's like a need, some sort of need from reality. There's freedom from all that, some sort of detachment. I feel is what everyone is talking about when they say freedom.
Be careful there. Is it the pleasure or the need?
The need, I feel, the need to
Mhm.
have a certain outcome, either away from pain or towards pleasure. Just freedom from that desires itself. Both the
That
positive
is
and the negative. You know?
freedom from suffering. I mean, this is exactly where we started of your reaction, your relationship to what's happening
Yeah,
is all of that, right?
yeah,
Need or not need. Yesterday, the meditation teacher I work with, instead of saying what he usually says, he switched it up and was like, ask yourself, do I need to change anything about how things are right now? Just keep that question. It gets at the same exact thing. Can I accept this, everything that's here as it is? And that's the relationship piece.
yeah. Over the period of time, the meaning of the word acceptance seems to be getting more nuanced understanding that. But then why accept, Why not reject it? Like what motivates a person?
What
Too
motivates
much.
them to accept?
Like why accept? Why not reject?
People reject all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's usually the default.
Hmm.
It's not a matter of I mean that's really like a very subjective question for people. Like everyone has a reason. I mean that's all self-discovery and inner monologue, like just trying to figure that out. Why? I
Yeah,
mean, ultimately, I think after so many times of doing that, you just run into the same answer,
yeah,
like the same foundation of like why you're doing what you're doing. Just looks different depending on the context.
Yeah, I think the whole spiritual discovery is that it's the rejecting itself that's the problem.
Yeah.
um,
yeah.
it's not that I haven't gotten the right thing or I haven't gotten rid of the right thing.
Or is it viewing rejecting as a problem, the problem?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go. That's like that's the spiritual Uno reverse that we could just do forever, right? Like,
To accept my rejection.
I'm a bad person, accept it. Fuck it. I am Hitler.
You accept the thought that says that. I mean, you just
Yeah,
keep backing up, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You know
It's
what
just
it is?
noticing judgment.
I feel you have to like accept reality as it is, but I feel somehow our mind like limits the amount of information, or at least our perception to reality. For example, if you are getting like 100 units of information, the mind can choose to be just conscious of 20 units and just ignore the rest 80. But I feel
Yeah, that's
acceptance
what.
is a process of slowly seeing more units of information, like actually seeing all the 100 units and then still being okay with all of that.
Mhm.
Does it make sense?
mhm. Um, was there anything else from the chapter that anyone want to highlight before we close?
The only thing I would like to
Nina,
highlight
anything
is
that we highlighted together, apparently?
yeah, what
I
else
know
is
there
there,
are a few
Nina?
things I highlighted, but
Yeah, share.
I don't know. Nothing sticks out. I think the stuff we brought up is what stuck out the most.
Nice. Now, I know it's been a little bit, but when we talked about one thing we talked about was the anniversary of Nina joining book club, and we talked about
What? It's been a year?
picking a movie. I'm actually looking back, and funny enough, I did like this hyper scroll all the way up. I'm seeing
So did I.
it's February 27th as I made a big post about it was a big post. So Nina recommended discussing Pixar's movie Soul. And so you must have joined.
Wait, what? It has been a
There's
year?
215.
I think
There's
it
two
was like
six.
beginning of February.
It's looking that way, yeah. So we're close. So in the spirit of that,
Oh
um,
boy.
do you have a movie, or if you don't have one, think of one? Because I think that's a
Yeah,
good way.
to
I'm gonna think
celebrate.
of one, but I did just watch a movie recently, but I thought it was,
Which movie?
I don't know, there's some good parts. It's called Ride the Eagle,
Ride the
and
Eagle?
Right.
but it wasn't like, I don't know, there were some parts that weren't that good. But it was about this guy who finds out his mom dies and she leaves him like a series of videos
It's
that
just
he
comedy.
has to complete all these tasks. Yeah, it's probably not a great one, but it was one I just watched that I was like, it's on the cusp. I think I'm like close to finding one. But that one is
Okay.
a potential in the running.
All
Sweet.
right.
Um,
Well, you have a month.
yeah, so I'm gonna start thinking hard now,
Yeah, think hard.
and
Also, I will
hope
mention
something
if
just shows
anyone
up.
like to celebrate their anniversary of joining
Wait,
book
I
club in a
can't
particular
believe.
way, we can do that.
I
Yeah.
really can't believe it's been a year.
We should celebrate book club itself's anniversary. I have it. The first message was from Serge on October 27th.
Of course, it was Sir.
Wow.
Dude, I was telling my girlfriend about Surge. I was like, let me tell you about like the ongoing like thought joke like funny in book club, and I was like, it's about this guy, and he joined, and he had a lot of good ideas, and he was really fun to have around. And then he told us that he was trained to become a mailman, and we never heard of him again. And he's wandering the streets as a mailman, fully enlightened, just like totally in the moment all the time. And he was in our book club. He's gonna have a book come out in years, being like delivering the mail.
The enlightened, the enlightened mailman.
Yeah, so like, look at this. He starts like first of all, his profile picture is
Yeah.
like I
So
don't
good at
know.
that.
I was like, who? I mean, like, my immediate thing is like, is that Lao Tzu? Like, I don't know. I don't know who it's supposed to be. But then his first message is, I read all these Alan Watts books. I'm gonna read Nature. Maybe this year in October we read Nature, Man, and Woman to honor Surge. He doesn't even have to be here.
You should just tag him and see
His
if he
I
his
comes
will.
spirit
back.
his
I'll
spirit
I'll
lives.
tag him. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, there is
He
like,
read the book with us.
oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, there is like a different aspect where a person is like enlightened and is like trying to like expand his horizon in terms of like the survival aspect in society as well. It's very rare to see someone who's like, either people are like enlightened and do meditation and like live like a more conservative life, or you have like people who try to like become the best and stuff. Very
Yeah,
rare
it's
to
just
see
the
like both.
greatest thing about Surge is I can't tell you a single thing about him.
Really.
Yeah, I have no like mental model other than just a few conversations we had. Like, there's nothing. It's crazy. I think that'd be a good way, though, Rave, to celebrate. We'll read Nature, Man, and Woman, October. We'll have to fill our time with books up between then, but I'll tag him. I'll be like, I don't know if you're out there delivering the mail, but just so you know.
That's
I'd be so
crazy.
hyped if he pops back in.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Um, but like I said, with that said, so I guess technically, Rave, your book club anniversary is whenever our first. It looks like November
When is
2nd
mine?
or November 7th was our official first meeting, I think.
So your year
Yeah,
was then too, right? Because it's only been a year, a little over a year.
Yeah, so
It was
Rave's 1 year was
2027.
November 7th. Rave, I apologize that we missed it. We can celebrate however you see fit. And then Vito, yours is,
I
let's see
can't believe it's
here.
been a year, guys. What the fuck?
It's
I'm in
a lot of
shock.
lot of laundry. I think today is one of the ones I really felt the laundry effect of book club.
You
We get
know,
spoiled like week after week, and I'm like, I'm so squeaky clean. And then we take a couple weeks, and I'm like, poof.
just for you, Boots, just for you, I've taken the luxury to record all of this. Yeah.
There we go. Oh yeah, Vito will provide us with an archive of all of our discussions.
Wait, so when is my starting date?
I'm looking at it. I'm seeing one from April from you. Let's see.
I think
Was
I
your
came before
first?
Nina, no?
There's March.
Before
No,
me?
I think
Yeah,
after.
after
It was
you?
Yeah, I think it was
after. Yeah,
after me.
because
Because I
before you
remember.
joined Vito, there's Trip. It was me, Nina,
Oh, yeah.
Rave, and Trip was in and out. He
Nina
he was
scared
here for
Trip
the
away.
book. He
But I remember talking to Nina about like, who's this new kid?
Oh,
this new guy. Let's
Uh-huh.
see. Vito, it looks like I'm seeing April 1st as the first one. You came out
That's
April
my
Fool's Day.
birthday.
Oh, look at that! Isn't that neat?
yeah.
Little birthday present. We got a Vito.
A wild Vito.
A wild Vito appeared.
Yeah.
I think that's the first. Yeah, I will try to show up. So you joined. Your first one was in April. It was the Watercourse Way. When you joined us,
Yeah,
and then
in the Book of Pooh.
And which is the first book that you read?
You're asking
This
me?
one, right? Yeah.
yep.
Uh,
We went
This
through a
one?
few books, and
technically,
then we got Vito reading.
technically, the last book I already read, but yeah,
Yeah, because you did recommend that
True.
to us, and you had read it before, and then you mentioned that
yeah,
you don't like rereading. So
yeah.
now we'll keep that in mind. If we want Vito to read, we have to pick a
New
new
one,
book.
new book. Yeah.
New book, new Vito.
Movies too. He doesn't rewatch movies.
Oh yeah, I don't like
Oh yeah, no
rewatching movies.
rewatching movies. So Nina, keep that in mind. I'm just kidding.
Okay. I have to find something
Consult
really
with me
good and
first,
a deep
and
cut somewhere.
yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so it sounds like yeah, so Rave, like I guess technically it's mine too. November 7th was our very first November 7th, 2020, which
Yep.
I guess I was in the first Alan Watts Discord like in the summer, and then it collapsed or something happened to it. Like they closed the channel, and I opened up this one because I was like, all these people are so cool. I don't want to lose them.
Attachment, huh?
Cool. Yep, I was super attached. Um,
Serge is coming with a mail of suffering. Yeah, right to your doorstep. Here you go, Boots. Your dose. That.
There we go. Oh man, I used to send these long messages. Man. Okay, cool. So now we know all of our book club anniversaries, and like I said, Nina's like obviously she came and she's like, "Hey guys, let's watch this movie," and so that was a good change, and I
Soul
think
is
that's a good
actually a
way
good
to.
movie. Yeah. I feel
Yeah, no,
I
it's an
feel Soul
awesome
is too
movie.
deep for a fucking kid. I'm watching Soul. I'm like, why
No,
the
I
fuck?
love it. I
Oh.
love that it's putting like it's exposing kids to that just that like level of like life, like here we were like with Mulan and all these other things, we're like, yeah, war, yeah, all this stuff, and this is like your emotions and your like soul and these like fifth dimensional beings named Terry or Jerry. Terry was the busybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jerry. The
Jerry, yeah,
Jerrys.
the Jerrys, I love them.
I wonder,
Love
now
all.
that we're talking about this, I wonder if Inside Out is kind of along the same lines. It's a little more childish, but
I've
it's all
watched
about
I
Inside Out.
watched it.
emotion.
It's pretty good. Like
Yeah.
it's more focused on the emotions than like the existential stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still a good movie.
I feel Soul is a
Ro-
bit too real now. It's like And yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. I love Soul.
I
I
liked
watched
it
it
too.
twice.
Oh,
I know. It's a really good
A,
one.
a foreign act from Vito's perspective. Twice. Why are you watching
twice!
things
Oh my
twice?
god! Yeah, I was like shocked. I was so good. I watched it twice. That's like a big deal to me. Fuck, watch it twice. Shit.
Oh man.
There
All
are
right.
only a handful of movies like Schindler's List that I watched like twice. That's it.
Oh wow, Schindler's List.
That's a
I think
good
I've only
movie.
seen that
I
one.
want to watch like a World War II inspired one now after this book. I
Have you
might
watched
watch
Schindler's
Schindler's
List? It is about the
a long
Holocaust.
time ago.
Dude, it's an amazing movie.
Well,
I
Vito watched
googled.
it twice. That means
Yeah,
something.
yes, like yeah.
Yeah. I googled like I don't know, because all his stories makes me want to like see a portrayal of camp life, and so I googled
Mm.
what's the most realistic. And I think Schindler's List was among the top. What people said.
Very well produced, directed movie. But I understand Boots has to go to have his dinner. So
Dinner
before he
time.
leaves,
It'd be
Rafe.
hangry. But I will say for reading next time, if everyone's okay with it, in skimming, I actually started to remember why I like this section, but I'm not going to say anything. But let's say 115. I think yeah, we'll read up to 115, and like this section is broken into like minor sections. So like it starts with
Part 2, right?
yeah, this is part two. So like there's like a bunch of sections. Like there's like the will to meaning, existential frustration, neurogenic neuroses, just like all these things. But just to 115, and then we'll do the other half after we discuss that, and
Sweet.
I'll send out a reminder post in the book club channel um, for that stuff. And Rave, it sounds like you're not getting away without a reading because Vito wants it.
Yeah. If I'm reading it, Rafe, yeah, you better read it.
Oh yeah, he's reading the book, so now he wants you to read to him now.
I
Oh.
need you to read it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm back to a normal schedule. My thing was like I didn't want to come out of that 7-day silent
No.
retreat with my mind wide open and then just binge Holocaust. I didn't really think that would be a
Yeah, man.
great.
Not very wise.
We're back to busy mind now, so we can deal with it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Rafe, yeah, finish it. Finish it. Put the finishing touch. Give us a give
Oh,
us something.
poem.
Yeah.
I'm not.
If
I'm not consuming as much as I have been, but I got the Tao Te Ching right here. Maybe I'll.
Yeah. Hit it.
if you don't have one, I can read one from How to Sit by Thich
Oh,
Nhat
yeah.
Oh
Hanh,
yes, go for it. Yeah.
who
Let's hit
who
that.
I would like to say Ook from Zen hates.
Wait, what?
There's a guy from the Zen subreddit, and he hates Thich Nhat Hanh, and I this guy is just
Why?
There's a lot of people he hates. He hates Dogen too, the
Oh
very
I think
famous
really?
he
Zen
hates.
guy.
Why?
Mhm.
He's a character. So this is, let me see. There's a couple. I might have referenced this before, but I really like these little books. Nice
Yeah.
little aesthetic. So this is one I might have. I said I apologize if this is like a reread, but I really like this. I had a bookmarked from like weeks ago. This is don't just do something. Sit there. Well, when people say don't just sit there, do something, they're urging you to act. But if the quality of your being is poor, if you don't have enough peace, understanding, and equanimity, if you still have a lot of anger and worries, then your actions will also be poor. Your actions should be based on the foundation of high quality of being. Being is non action, so the quality of action depends on the quality of non action. Non action is already something. There are people who don't seem to do very much, but their presence is crucial for the well being of the world. You may know people like this who are steady, not always busy doing things, not making a lot of money, or being engaged with a lot of projects, but who are very important to you. The quality of their presence makes them truly available. their contributing non-action, the high quality of their presence. To be in the here and the now, solid and fully alive, is a very positive contribution to our collective situation. The end.
Damn.
I really like that
That's
one.
really good.
Like when I read that, I was like, I don't know. That's some. I have a lot of friends who are very, very accomplished in careers, and so I often get caught up in like, well, what am I working on? And that reading, I think that's why I bookmarked it when I first started reading it. That completely removed anything I had to say about that to myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
I
doing
feel,
that comes from not doing.
There's value in non-action,
man,
and it's
years
highly
ago,
valued.
this is the last thing. Years ago, I read this like Zen. He said something like, looking at a still lake, I found peace. Or looking at the moon. No, it's like there's a guy, he robbed moon, and the guy said, I wish he could take this beautiful moon as well, or something like that. I never understood that kind of line of thought, you know. Only recently I'm coming to like understand what this guys were meaning. You know what I mean? Like you need like a level of detachment and the state of being to support that. Very well said. Maybe I should read that. How to sit
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, he has a bunch of them. So like, I think he has a total of 7, and they're all they're like Roy G. Biv
Who is he
colored.
exactly?
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah.
He's a Zen master, even though uh, Ook in the Zen subreddit would say he's not a Zen master.
Ook.
Um,
Sounds like a Disney
but yeah,
villain, but
he's a pretty popular uh, Zen master. This little book. It's very tiny. It's like the size of your hand. It's like called the Mindfulness Essentials, and I mean I'm a sucker for aesthetics when it comes like to books. I like things I can travel with and stuff. And I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
these, and this is the red one. It's how to sit, but he has like how to fight, how to stand, how to walk. Has like 7 of them. So I figured, you know what, I'll work through the red one, and then when I'm ready, I'll go to the orange one, and I'll just go by the colors because I don't know if there's a particular order. So I'm just gonna make one up.
Mm.
Yep. Cool.
So, so far it's really good. But that so far is
You
my
just read
favorite. The
one
one
book?
huh?
You
Yeah, I
just,
just have one of them. I didn't need to. I would be overwhelmed if I bought all of them. And like I was like, well, no, I have to read them. So I'm just kind of like, whenever I feel a certain way, I read the next chapter. Um, I'm not even halfway through, but it's very short. I mean, like the readings are very short. It's kind of reads like one of those. It's like read one of these a day, but instead of it's like read one of these whenever you feel like you want to read one of these. Like, and once I'm done, I'll get the next one.
yeah.
But yeah. Thanks for hopping
Laundering
on
your
today.
brain.
Is good to good. Yeah. Thanks for laundering my brain, and
Likewise,
is good
likewise.
to talk to you all.
Man, I missed
Yeah.
it too. I'm like, damn, I really wish. You know what's funny about book club? I never feel like I have to be in the book club, but every time I am in the book club, I'm like, damn, why am I not doing this more often? You know what I mean? That's the feeling.
Well, there's such a thing as watching things too much. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's true. You have to like tastefully allocate that time. Yeah.
Yeah, you just do laundry once a week.
Yeah. Sure.
Well,
I'll
have a
see
good
you.
week, everybody.
Bye bye.
Yep,
Yep.
you too.
Have a good week.